The city of Vienna has great public transportation. There's 5, soon to be 6 subway lines. Most of the city's historical streetcars were never ripped out, and some new streetcar lines opened just last year. The buses are all modern and air-conditioned, and every subway station and most subway trains are wheelchair accessible. But all of that stuff is a story for another time, because today I want to talk about another, often overlooked aspect of public transit that is also really good here: signage and wayfinding. Don't underestimate the power and usefulness of good signage. Even today, when all of us constantly carry the everything rectangle in our pockets, it still helps to have street signs to tell us where to go. Who among us hasn't whipped out Google Maps only to realize that the GPS signal on their phone is just completely wrong and that they're actually nowhere near the location marker? And when you're out on the street, you can look around you and try to find your way using streets, landmarks, stores, what have you. But if you're in an underground maze of tunnels, walkways, escalators, and elevators, you're out of luck. You're going to need signs to tell you where to go. The most basic form of signage I've encountered in subway stations is basically nothing. Some stations on Copenhagen's metro are simple enough that there isn't really any need for signage. Your train arrives, you see the escalators or elevator, and you just go up all the way until you reach street level. This works well for Copenhagen, since a lot of their stations are small and simple, with just one entrance or exit, and only one very short platform. It also fits in with Danish minimalism, since the public space isn't polluted by text and symbols everywhere. But here in Vienna, the subway is a touch more grandiose than that. The trains themselves are about 3 times as long as Copenhagen's metro trains, and most stations have multiple entrances and exits. Here at Volkstheater station, for example, those can be almost 300 meters apart in a straight line, or over 350 meters apart if we consider the actual walking distance. And at the Hauptbahnhof, which in English means main train station, you might find yourself having to walk 500 meters if you need to transfer there. So we need some proper wayfinding, and I believe Vienna's public transit system very much delivers on this front. Let's actually use the main station as a case study. From the very first moment that we land here, the station makes it clear which way we should go for public transit. Go left here for the U-Bahn subway or streetcar lines 18 and O, or all bus lines. And if we start following the signs for subway line U1, we'll keep seeing more and more of them along the way, like this one above the escalators down into the station, and this one that we see while riding the escalator, and this one telling us to turn left, and this one above the escalators leading down into the underground section of the station, and this one above the entryway into the commuter part of the station, and these ones along the corridor leading up to the subway part of the commuter part of the station. At the end of the corridor, we reach what in other cities would be a ticket barrier, but here in Vienna is just some railings with ticket validators. Another sign tells us to go down for line U1 if we want the escalator, or left if we want the elevator or wheelchair access. It's a bit difficult to film, but right above the end of this escalator, there's 2 signs leading us to the 2 directions of line U1. These are very useful for people who already know this line and know which direction they need to take. But for anyone who isn't intimately familiar with it, there's also this sign a little up ahead, showing us the full list of stops on the line. If we need any of the stations on the top part, we go right. If we need any of the ones on the bottom part, we go left. If you know you need to change lines somewhere but don't remember the name of the station, the other subway lines are clearly marked with their line number and color. These are a relatively recent upgrade to the subway's wayfinding system, as it used to have these text-only signs before that were quite a bit less clear and didn't show transfer points. Once we're on the platform, we have an old-timey electronic sign telling us how many minutes we're going to have to wait, and behind the tracks, there's a schematic of all of the upcoming stops on the line with an arrow showing us which way the train is going to go. And once we're on the train, there's a map of the entire subway system over every door. Newer trains have screens here that show an animated map with our current position highlighted. There's a lot to be said about how these electronic maps are designed, but I do think that all things considered, they are an improvement over the paper maps. At every stop, there's an automatic announcement with the station's name and a full list of other lines we can transfer to.
Karlsplatz. Umsteigen zu U2, U4, D, 1, 2, 62, 71, 2a, 4a, 59a. Lokalbahn nach Baden.
Not just subway lines, but also streetcars and buses. Once we get off the train, there's many signs on the platform in this line's color telling us which station we're at, as well as what we can find to the left and to the right of that particular sign. If the list is too long for both sides to fit, the signs alternate between listing things on the left and listing things on the right. The symbols are simple and recognizable, even if you don't speak German, and they look like they were inspired by the ISO 7001 standard. In stations with more than one subway line, the other subway lines are also clearly marked on these signs using their line number and color. Streetcars, buses, and heavy rail are also marked, and in stations where the different bus or streetcar lines stop at different places, those will be clearly marked as well. Even in large, complicated stations like Karlsplatz, there are clear, visible signs holding your hand the entire way from one line's platform through escalators and weird mezzanines to another line's platform. As long as you look up every once in a while as you're walking, you will almost definitely spot a sign that tells you exactly where you need to go. In stations where the elevator and the staircase are not in the same place, the wheelchair accessible route will always be marked separately, whether that's at the entrance to the station, or when changing lines, or when guiding us to the exit. And if a certain exit only has stairs, that will also be clearly marked. This is especially useful if you're in a wheelchair, but also if you're just carrying a suitcase or a stroller or one of these old lady shopping carts. This is known in urbanist circles as the curb cut effect, because when cities create a curb cut at an intersection, that thing where the sidewalk drops to road level, they usually do it with wheelchair users in mind. But in reality, it ends up actually helping a lot of other people too. So despite some of these pictograms clearly being meant for wheelchair users, they still benefit my able ass when I'm carrying groceries or heavy suitcases. I really only have two gripes with the wayfinding system. The first is line U6. I know, the U6 is a terrible, awful line and should be boycotted for its crimes against humanity, etc., etc. But also, a lot of its stations are very old and stylish, and in the name of preserving this stylishness, the signage there is significantly worse and less clear. But life is about compromises, so I'm willing to live with that if it means I get cool Art Nouveau station buildings on the Gürtel. The second gripe I have is the double names thing. Local Viennese YouTube sensation Tapa Kappa has already spoken about this, but to summarize, some subway stations in Vienna have a secret second name that usually isn't shown on the map, but is shown in the station itself. This on its own is already pretty questionable, but the way this is done in practice is downright infuriating. Take for example the station Messe Prata. On the map, this is shown as Messe Prata, but in the station itself, what you'll see is just Prata on this sign, or just Messe on this sign. So depending on which sign you happen to see when you look out the window, you'll see a completely different station name. This is less bad here at Messe Prata because the sign outside the station and the official subway map both refer to it with the double-barreled name, but Stubentor station only shows up on the map with the one name, whereas signs in the station alternate between Stubentor and Dr. Karl Lueger Platz. I'm guessing the city doesn't want to have the name of an extremely anti-Semitic former mayor on the official subway map. But then, why have the name in the station at all? Anyway, apart from these two hiccups, I do believe that the wayfinding on the Vienna subway is exceptionally well designed, and I hope that every city with a subway system learns something from this one. If you enjoyed listening to me ramble on about signage, be sure to like, subscribe, and send the video to other people who might enjoy it. Bonus points if they're responsible for signage and wayfinding at your local public transit authority.